If you ever want to start a fight in the TTRPG space, just go to social media and express an opinion about dying in 5e Dungeons & Dragons. In real life, death and dying are topics debated by scientists and philosophers since the beginning of time. Well, in the TTRPG space, keyboard philosophers have been doing the same, albeit probably with more name-calling and passive-aggressive memes than Plato and Socrates used.
All we are is dust in the wind, dude.
Players in TTRPGs have strong opinions about PC death at their tables, and a lot of them have strong opinions about how other tables should handle PC death too. This is one of those flag in the sand, the way my table does it is the only correct way, beliefs that lead to arguments where there are no winners, only survivors. This video isn't a rant about which is the proper attitude to have about PC death in tabletop games. Believe whatever you want. I'm tired of those endless debates. No, this video is about death in Daggerheart and how it takes beats from all the best death mechanics from various games and smushes them together into one collage. Merging the best bits from other games into a Frankenstein rule is kinda Daggerheart's bread and butter. And also, this video is about why I think you should consider stealing parts of the system to drop it to 5e, Shadowdark, or whatever your preferred TTRPG is. It's a good death system, and I'm going to tell you why. Let's talk about how death works in this game. Daggerheart has a clever and cinematic way of handling what happens when you mark your last hit point. You get a choice of 3 death moves. You can 1. Embrace death and go out in a blaze of glory, letting your PC have one last action that is an auto-critical success. You can also avoid death, where you go temporarily unconscious, and potentially take a scar, which means you permanently lose a hope slot, and then get to determine how you were quote-unquote scarred roleplay-wise going forward. Or the third death move is called Risk It All, where you make a single roll of the dice to see if you live or die. A lot of people accuse 5e of being way too forgiving when it comes to death and dying. I get it. Personally, I don't mind the death save system as a DM. The problem is how friggin' hard it is to even drop a 5th edition PC down to 0 hit points in the first place. As a player, I don't really love 5e's death save system. It's kinda hard to explain, but it feels both barbaric and too forgiving at the same time. The too forgiving part is that it really does give you a lot of chances to avoid death. Ask your average dungeon master if it's hard to kill PCs in 5th edition. We already know what they're going to say, unless they've homebrewed 5e to make it more lethal. But doing rules as written, it's very hard to kill PCs. And in the 2024 5th edition revision, they've made it even harder, especially since PCs now seem to have multiple sources of constantly refreshing temporary hit points. The barbaric part is that it takes away your agency. Like, it's a little weird to think of all the heroic and superpowered things I can do, yet all that power is reduced to one single die roll to live or die. Some games mitigate this by letting you take certain actions at 0 health, and you could say, well, you're unconscious, you shouldn't be able to take actions. And that's a valid argument. I guess what I'm saying is I'm so intrigued by Daggerheart's death system because it gives the player a choice. Other TTRPGs don't do that. In most TTRPGs, 0 health is a failed state, and when it happens, the rules activate and a series of if-then statements play out until the PC either lives or dies. So let's talk a little more about each of the 3 death moves this game has and what each one means. But you're welcome to homebrew your own death moves. You don't have to offer only the 3 listed here in the game. Here's one I'll call with a little help from my friends. When you mark your last HP, you go unconscious. Start a countdown timer at 2 or maybe 3. If an ally doesn't reach you and clear 1 HP before the countdown triggers, you're dead. Also, it's important to note in Daggerheart, you make a death move immediately after marking your last hit point. There's no holding period where you're in limbo waiting for your turn to come back around. No, in this game, when you go down, the spotlight stays on you until it's resolved. Real quick, could you hit the like button and subscribe below? It only takes a second and it really helps out. Make sure to click all next to notifications. Every sub to my channel comes with a free high five if we ever meet in person. The first move is called Risk It All. This takes 5e death saves and reduces it to a single roll. You roll the duality dice. If the fear die is higher, roll up a new character. If the hope is higher or you crit, you're back on your feet. Because of the way crits work, you have like a little bit better than 50% chance to succeed. I'm not precise on the math, because I spent most of my college statistics class flirting with the cute young woman who sat next to me. Risk It All is the perfect option for the chaos-forward, push-the-button type player. Next is the Blaze of Glory, which is the coolest and most novel of the options. I won't spoil it, but there's a moment in Campaign 3 of Critical Role where, even though they were playing 5e, one PC does a Blaze of Glory move. And if you've seen it, you know what a powerful moment at the table that was. Blaze of Glory is the stuff that bards write songs about, and I think if this interests you, then you're probably the kind of player who was brainstorming ideas for potential Blazes of Glory from Session 1. You know how when you're playing a silly one-shot, so you do wild things with your character because you don't care if they live or die, you just want the best story? The Blaze of Glory brings that one-shot energy to a campaign. And the last death move is the one with the most controversy attached, Avoid Death. But you know what? You don't have to use it. If you house rule your Daggerheart table to say only Blaze of Glory and Risk It All are allowed as death moves, that would make the game considerably more lethal. It's also important to know that Resurrection is harder to achieve in Daggerheart compared to 5e. It's either extremely costly or requires high-level magic that can only be used once. Like once ever in a campaign. But let's talk about the third death move. The Avoid Death move basically lets you decide to nope your way out of a scene. You go unconscious and can't take actions until you've rested or you've been revived by an ally. There's a line in the move that says you, quote, can't be targeted by an enemy attack, and I've already seen online arguments over this. GMs asking things like, well, what if the bad guy drops an AoE spell? Will that hurt the down PC? And I think their intention with this is no, if you avoid death, your character is safe and cannot be killed during the scene. Now you might be thinking, well, couldn't power gamers abuse that? And the answer to that question is yeah, they could. I've seen lots of clever people online pointing out ways that hardcore players could abuse the narrative mechanics to reap broken rewards. And I gotta say, I just don't think those kinds of players are going to be attracted to this game. I don't think min-maxing and broken builds are going to be chronic issues in Daggerheart. Or I can also hear you saying, well, if the PCs can just choose not to die, then now you've taken my agency away. Now you've lessened the stakes of my game. And I get that, but I also think life and death shouldn't always be the sole stakes. As a game master, you need more sliders than just the threat of death to raise and lower the tension of a campaign. In the Avoid Death move, you roll a d12, and if you roll equal to or lower than your level, you gain a scar, which means you permanently lose a hope point. Personally, I homebrewed this so that you automatically gain a scar when avoiding death. I don't like the idea of rolling well and getting off completely scot-free. Cheating death has to have some mandatory in-game consequences. But the point of why I like Daggerheart's death moves is that it gives the player a choice. For me, difficult choices are the juiciest moments in role-playing games. It's why I love the Devil's Bargain so much. And a choice like this, at the potential moment of your death, it's the most important choice you'll make all campaign, potentially the last choice your PC will ever make. And how would we use these cinematic options in D&D? Let's look at the Blaze of Glory. Let's say you drop to 0 hit points, and you tell the DM you want to skip death saves and just go out in a Blaze of Glory. Then depending on your class, you have some kind of predetermined ability to use in that situation. If you're a wizard, maybe you get one of your highest level spell slots to use on anything you want. Fireball, Banishment, Meteor Swarm, whatever. If you're a fighter, you get to make a single auto-crit attack on each enemy within 30 feet. If you're a cleric, you get to cast Mass Cure Wounds on the rest of the party. Whatever it is, I love the idea of a PC being able to make one last mega heroic act before finally succumbing to their injuries. As long as the DM approves it, of course. And so that is Death and Dying in Daggerheart. I'm GM Jim. I'll see you in the funny pages.